Hello, I'm Dr. Clifford Saron. I'm a neuroscientist at the University of California at Davis. And today I'm going to be sharing with you work that my colleagues and I have been involved in, going on almost a decade at this point, that involves a variety of approaches to studying scientifically the effects of intensive meditation training. And I'm going to be speaking about a large number of methodological, theoretical, conceptual issues that come into play in contemplative science research. So the title of this talk today will be Training the Mind, Opening the Heart, Findings and Lessons from this project, the Shamatha Project. So if we begin, I want to let you know that probably actually already aware there's in society a tremendous presence in the popular press regarding mindfulness or scientific evidence for the beneficial effects of meditation. This is exemplified by a cover story in Time magazine last February, many articles in the Huffington Post that tout extraordinary benefits of meditation. And in this particular slide, there are many claims that are unqualified, and from a scientific research point of view, almost each one of these claims comes with its own caveats. And while we don't have time, because we could probably be here all day trying to explain why one cannot unambiguously interpret these claims, it's important to know that there is in society now a kind of meme running around that suggests that meditation is merely a cure-all. And those of you with some experience, and many of you with experience of many different ways to achieve well-being, will know that that's not going to turn out to be the full story at all. In fact, there's an article recently in Bloomberg News and the magazine Bloomberg Pursuits, which is actually a lifestyle magazine for the very rich, that suggests if you want to make a killing on Wall Street, you should start to meditate. And findings that I'm going to be sharing with you today are actually cited in this article. Improvements in visual perceptual thresholds that I'll go through in our experiments are being used by stockbrokers who think if they can meditate enough, their vision will be sharp enough to capture the first moment a ticker tape goes across their screen, and they can essentially hack their brain to make more money, a kind of internal high-frequency trading. The ethics of that and all of the issues involved, I'm sure, has been well explored in other facets of this course. And here we have an example that is almost without par. The best dressed monk, attire for the mindful man. And in fact, there's a store in LA where you can buy clothing. What its effect on you? I'm sure it's not insignificant, but in what direction it will move you, I don't know. At the same time, we live in a society that is so wired, so perpetually interconnected, so often stimulated, caffeinated, and never quite quiet and alone, that a recent study published in the journal Science in July of 2004 in 11 experiments showed that many individuals, if they cannot have their smartphone, their computer, and need to be told to sit alone for 15 minutes in a room, become so uncomfortable that given the option of shocking themselves to a level that includes pain, they will rather shock themselves than sit quietly. So when you put these things together, We definitely have a problem with hype regarding some of the claims of the effects of meditation. And at the other end, we have a problem because the simplicity of quiescence is leaving our culture. So in the following time, I'm going to be speaking to you about what it might be like to enter a much longer quiet time and see how that affects folks. But you also need to know that meditation is far from the only activity that might help restore your sense of well-being and attention. This is an article from February 2013 in the New York Times. Relax. You'll be more productive. And some of the work cited in that article comes from research done at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And in this paper, published in Psychological Science, there's a very interesting task, a difficult working memory task, where you need to look at 4-digit numbers coming on a screen, and you need to press a button when the current number was a number you saw several numbers ago. That's called an N-back task, and it's extremely difficult when 3 or 4 numbers ago is how far back you need to be paying attention. So you need to constantly keep in your working memory a list of numbers, each of 4 digits, and doing this task, you get quite fatigued. It's a very attentionally demanding task. So what these investigators did is they gave undergraduates in University of Michigan the task, and then they told them to take a walk for 20 minutes. And there were 2 options. You could walk in downtown Ann Arbor, or you could walk in the University Arboretum. What's interesting is that here you have some information from the task. Before the walk, these 2 groups that were randomly assigned to either walking downtown or walking in the Arboretum, they were equally matched in their memory performance. Folks who walked downtown in blue, they improved a little bit the second time they came back to the lab and did the task. Now, if you've done something hard, you've also learned something about how to do it. So doing it again will have a practice effect, and you're a little better. But look at the yellow bar. Here, the yellow bar, the group that has walked in the Arboretum is significantly better than the group that walked downtown. So as a kind of orientation to thinking about the effects of meditation, I want to talk to you about attention restoration theory, which is not a new idea. It goes all the way back to William James. And it basically goes like this. We, as you all know, have limited attentional resources, but they can be restored. Interacting with environments rich in inherently fascinating stimuli involuntarily evokes our attention. When we walk in a beautiful place, when we see trees and rocks and lawns and hills, each of these invokes our attention modestly. And because our attention is drawn modestly, it doesn't take much effort to disengage and look at something else that might draw our attention. This modest engagement allows for the replenishment of our limited attention resources. The requirement for directed attention in such environments is minimized. You can look wherever your fancy takes you, however what seems most salient in the moment. And our attention is captured typically in what could be called bottom-up fashion by the features of the environment we find most interesting in that moment. Perhaps the wind blows and you see the weeds near where you are sway, and you simply look. So the logic is that after interaction with natural environments, one is able to perform better on tasks that depend upon directed attention, because you've had a chance to replenish these resources. So consider this scene, which I had the good fortune to take this picture in dawn in a South African safari this past summer. So you're kind of now looking at some of the conditions that gave rise to the environment of our speciation, which is kind of an interesting thing to contemplate. So let's just look at this image for a moment. And contrast it with this image. This is a shot I took in Cape Town. Interesting that there is on the side of a truck a big foot placing itself squarely in your view. The feeling of these two images, if we just look at this one, is quite different. In urban environments, we have stimulation, car horns, moving vehicles, advertisements that capture our attention dramatically, and they require additional directed attention to overcome that stimulation. Avoiding traffic, ignoring advertising. I want to go to a store and so much assaults me along the way, I actually spend attentional resources inhibiting all the distracting elements while paying attention and high levels of vigilance to not bump into people, and when we're in streets with traffic, to avoid being hit by cars. This effort consumes attentional resources and therefore makes urban environments less restorative than natural ones. So you can see that a natural environment is actually one where your attention can be restored. And that's important to consider its role in contemplative practice. Because I'd like to argue that when you close your eyes, you're in a natural environment. Now this is an interesting experiment as well, thinking outside the box. So this is the experiment. You have a large room, and inside the large room there is a cube with a little door on it. It's like a tent, but it's a cube. And you can go in the cube and sit in a chair. And you're randomly assigned, when you walk in this room, to either sit in the larger room or sit inside this 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot cube. When you are assigned to the cube or the big room, you're given a remote associate's creativity task. This kind of a task, here's an example. I'm going to give you 3 words. I want you to find the one word that links all 3 terms. Here we go. Recording, measuring, worm. Anybody got it? Tape. Recording tape, measuring tape, tapeworm. If you look at this graph, you'll see that if you're inside the box, you do significantly worse than if you're sitting outside the box. A control group is in between. Nothing has been systematically different other than simply the exact local environment around you, and it's changed the way you think. Think how often, every day, minute by minute, the quality of your mind is affected by your local environment. So that's a kind of preamble for thinking about our project.